That the first time we were forced to lay off people to just survive, cut salaries. We were maybe 30 to 60 days of cash left. It was definitely very close to death.
Welcome to Millionaire Mondays, the show where we bring you the stories of real Indian startups told by the entrepreneurs that built them. I'm Caleb Friesen, and on the show today, how Rahm Shastry leveraged a disorganized industry to build DriveU, the market leader in India's on-demand private driver space. So where I'm from in North America, having a private driver is prohibitively expensive for most people. And this is why car culture is so big there. People drive themselves around instead of hiring a driver, and this does happen in India too. Plenty of people drive themselves around in their own vehicles, but there are situations where this just doesn't make a lot of sense. For example, if you need to get to and from the airport on a regular basis, then driving yourself and paying for parking can be very costly. Same thing with ride-hailing. Trips to the airport, especially in Bengaluru, end up costing thousands of rupees. And this is where the use case for hiring a private driver starts to make a lot of sense. In India, having a driver on your personal payroll is something that a lot of Indian families have been doing for decades. But ultimately, these drivers end up spending hours waiting outside of restaurants, cafes, friends' houses, and offices. And really, what they're waiting for is their employer, their passenger, to finish whatever task or errand they drove them to. And that's wasted time for the driver, and it's also wasted money for their employer. Rahm Shastry, an entrepreneur from Bengaluru, saw this inefficiency as an opportunity and decided to build a platform that put on-demand private drivers behind the wheel of your car whenever you need them to. Today, DriveU is being used by more than 40,000 passengers on a monthly basis and has trained and certified upwards of 50,000 drivers for their service. It's also an EBITDA positive company, and as the market leader in their segment, the startup brings in about 60 crore rupees on an annual basis. But Rahm didn't actually start DriveU because he needed the money. In 2015, he became a multi-millionaire when one of his portfolio companies, TaxiForSure, was acquired by Ola for $200 million. And Rahm could have taken that money and chosen not to work another day in his life, but instead, he used that money to found and build DriveU as a way of giving back to India, which is a country that he'd left in 1980. When Rahm was 22 years old, he moved to New York to pursue higher studies at Stony Brook University, and following this, much of the next 3.5 decades of his life were spent in California building businesses. Pursuing his own ambitions and building things that he cared about, these were things that were really important to Rahm because it's something that his parents weren't able to do. He grew up in Bengaluru in the 1960s and 1970s. His mom was a homemaker with a love for philosophy, and his dad was a civil engineer in Karnataka's public works department. And Rahm very easily could have followed in his father's footsteps. He was a bright kid with good grades in school, but when Rahm was in his mid-20s, his dad told him something that would forever change the trajectory of his life.
As I was growing up, one of the things that what I heard from my father was, you make your own decision and you have to live with it in the sense. And you try to, you will have lots of opportunities in life, but you pick what your passion is. So in a way, that is in a direction of doing a startup, because I could have worked in a company and did whatever they had said, but then I always had, said, you know what, I want to do this. How do I go about doing it is what I was kind of motivated to go there.
Do you come from a business like your family, family?
No, our family is far from business. They're all scholarly. My grandfather was a school teacher, high school teacher, and my dad was an engineer working for the Department of Public Works, as we call PWD in India. And so it was all, but he was always saying, you got to chart your own path, as well as it'll be great if you're going to go do your own company. Why not? You can do it. That was one of the things. As you know, I have a disability called polio, right? And when I was growing up, I had the polio very, very young. And when I was growing up, my dad and my mom always said, you could do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it, okay? That was more of telling me, don't feel sorry for yourself, and just go do it. So again, an extension of that is, a natural extension is to go do a startup. So that's how it started for me, and then of course, I went to the US and I started meeting other like-minded professionals, and then thought, why not? Let's go do it.
Oh, so your entrepreneurial journey, or like you kind of realizing that you wanted to get into business, it didn't start in Bangalore. It started once you had gone to the US, and that's when you met the people that sort of inspired you to start your own company.
That's correct. That's correct. So you get you meet some amazing world-class people from all over the world, literally, and you get inspired, and you see them, some of them go and start their own companies. And especially, I worked most of my life either in the Boston area or in Silicon Valley, and mostly in Silicon Valley for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it started. My entrepreneurial journey started there.
Was there something that really, like, was there an individual or a product or a company that kind of that was like an inspiring company for you that you looked up to?
Yeah. After a few years of my career, I went to it's called design automation, electronic design automation. There are big companies like Cadence, Synopsys, and so on. I was in a smaller startup called Viologic on the West Coast. And we were looking at Synopsys as the player in the market. They were number one. And I met with a couple of my colleagues, and we kept saying, their product is good, but we could do better. We said, let's go start our own company. So I had a technical guy and a marketing. I was the marketing and the fundraising guy, and the third one is sort of operations / applications engineer. So we went and started our first company in '95, and we all said, we all put our own. We quit our job. I loaded up my credit card. I got like 4 credit cards worth $100,000, and then I had enough money.
Sorry, $400,000 or
$100,000, $25,000
across all four of them.
All 4 credit cards. I said that's my backup plan. And then I said I had enough money to take care of my family for 9 months. Okay. Then I told the team, I said, guys, okay, let's go do a startup. In 6 months, if I'm not able to get it funded, we'll go find a job. Okay. If 6 months we are not able to, get any traction, and luckily within end of month 3, I got Matrix Partners, and Joe Rizzi was and in fact I was looking up, I haven't seen him lately, but he was there, and I pitched to him, and then no answer. Then he called me back on my way back home to our office, and he said, Ram, Matrix is too small. Okay, what you're asking, 300,000, but I'm going to put my own personal money, 300K. I really like you. I really think you can do something. So that was my first outside investment.
Did he see a decent ROI for that investment?
He did. Within 2 years, we sold the company. He probably made about, I would say, 3x on his money.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. For the first company.
Especially for 2 years as well.
Yeah, it's only 2 years, and we were able to sell it.
Could you have probably around the time that you came back to India, just like retired and just lived comfortably?
The last company I sold was, again, I sold it to actually Synopsys this time. The company that we were trying to go against, they were interested in our technology. So it went well, and I probably could have not worked or done some consulting to keep myself engaged. I took a lot of time off, about 4 years off, because I'm from Bengaluru, so I have family here. So I was trying to help out my dad. He was getting old, and I thought, I'm going to spend more time with him. And along the way, that's how it started, my entrepreneurial journey in India.
I guess you didn't jump into entrepreneurship right away. It was more as an investor capacity, right?
That's correct. So it's funny because a lot of the investments, at the seed stage, angel rounds, happen because of your networking, who you know, right? So I came from a college in Karnataka. My undergrad was NITK, which is in Surathkal. So there is a very good alumni association, and they were inviting me to come to the alumni association they were trying to do a global event. I went over there. And these two guys, lots of people were starting companies at that time. This is 2010, 2011. A lot of people wanted to talk to me, and at that time, they wanted a seed round of funding. And there were these two guys came in, Raghu and Aprameya, and they wanted to talk to me. I kept saying, I got to talk to these guys first. And then before the guy was saying, hey, let's go out for dinner. We are late, And then I remember Aprameya running next to my car and said, hey, I really want to talk to you. What do we do? I said, hey, let's meet tomorrow at the coffee place. Okay, let's go meet at coffee place. We went to, I said, so that's how we exchanged, and that's how I met them. I didn't know them before then. They told me the story of TaxiForSure, and they said, hey, we are trying to raise money. We are together, we quit our jobs and we are doing this. I spent time with them, and then I thought, I really like these kids. I thought, okay, and they really were looking to raise money. So I put some money, and I brought a couple of my friends to put some money. That's what happened.
When you decided to invest in TaxiForSure, were you deciding to become also actively involved? Is that the kind of investor that you are? Or are you kind of more somebody who just puts money in and then you kind of take a step back and let them figure things out for themselves?
No, I wanted to get involved because I was very curious about the Indian ecosystem for one. That's one thing personally. And secondly, I thought this was an interesting idea what they are trying to do, because I personally was having problems getting a cab. Okay. And when I come to India, and I was saying, this is a great service, and there is security, and there is, I don't want to haggle with price. All that made sense to me. So I was very intrigued. And that's one of the reasons I said, one of the things I looked at, my philosophy of investing is I have to personalize it and say, hey, is this something that I will use? It can make money for me. It'll help my life. Then I will be more inclined to invest. Most of the taxis that I used in India were either Meru. Meru used to be the taxi company they used to have. Or when I go to Mumbai, it'll be like, Kali Pili, kind of thing, which was, both of them were, Meru was a one level up in terms of quality, but Kali Pili was ridiculously horrible. I hated to get inside. And I thought, okay, by doing what TaxiForSure is doing, we may be able to help in quality of service and security. There are two other companies in US that had already started in that space. Uber had started. They were doing only the limousine service, black limousine service, very high end. Then there was a company called Sidecar. Both are from Silicon Valley. I have heard about Sidecar a little bit. I looked at Sidecar. I thought, Sidecar, of course, got wiped out by Uber, so it's no longer there. But then I think got acquired by Lyft or something. I don't remember now. But I never thought Uber would get into this space at that time. It was more, Uber was very high end, with drivers came with gloves on and, took you from places. Said, okay, not for the masses, but Uber also turned into a mass transportation service in the next couple of years by what we were trying to do in India. So
Ola at that time, were they not on?
No, Ola was there. We were, Ola fund was contemporaneous to TaxiForSure.
Right, okay.
They were
started around the same time.
Ola started in Mumbai and then moved their headquarters to Bangalore. And of course, TaxiForSure was here. We were neck and neck going against each other at that time. Obviously, by 2013, 2014, clearly Ola far exceeded TaxiForSure's capability to raise money and grow. My co-founder is Ashok. Ashok is, and he was working at TaxiForSure, and he said, hey, I think I have an idea. Let's start with the parking aggregation. Let's figure out a way to do parking.
Oh.
Okay, car parking. Okay.
So DriveU almost became
we had a name called Parko, was the name of the company. And then
Park Plus is doing that now, right?
Yeah. So Park Plus is doing that now. We looked at it in 2015, and we went and did a lot of end customer, interviews. And what we found out was, parking is a problem, but not as bad as in the US. Okay. For example, in San Francisco, if I park someplace, if I am even off by 1 minute, I end up charging $100 of ticket. I get a ticket if I don't move the car, and it's a pain. Okay, it's very expensive. In India, we don't have that culture. They don't do that, and people park haphazardly on the side of the street. Doesn't matter. Most of the time, it doesn't matter unless you're in central business district. Maybe a car will get towed, but not necessarily. So then, where is the need for parking? And then, okay, we can go to corporations, enterprises, and parking garages in malls. We went and looked at it. It was a very difficult space. We thought, you know what, this is not what we should do. But when we started talking to people, they said, you know what, my problem is not parking. My problem is coming from point A to point B to park the car. So can you help me there? India has a unique thing, is predominantly still joint family system. Maybe there's one car at that time, 2015. Typically people have one car, but there are 3 or 4 people who could be a prospective user of the car. A kid dropping off at school, the wife, mother. I mean, I don't want to sound like only mothers go shopping, but that's a typical thing. Or the spouse goes to work, commute. All these things that are there with their one car, and their parents want to take them to the hospital or whatever. So I thought they need drivers in many of these situations. They don't want to drive, or they want find parking. So that's I thought, okay, there's another opportunity nobody is doing. There was a lot of mom and pop entities across the country. Even today there are, but they didn't have tech. They were not tech enabled. They had all they were very old fashioned. What I thought TaxiForSure was seeing in 2010, I saw for driver service in 2015. So we said, hey, let's go do this.
So this was you identifying the demand in the market and the gap maybe that nobody else had served. But was it, you had all these people telling you this, but then when you actually decided to pivot and started moving in this direction, did you find it easy to start actually making money from this business?
We have an amazing team. A lot of the founding team pretty much came from TaxiForSure, right? They had quit because Ola had acquired TFS, TaxiForSure, and they were going to be laying off everybody. And people said, okay, we will move on. And this is an amazing team. What I told was, listen, I have money. I'm able to fund it for at least 1 year without raising money from outside. I would like you guys to come in. Let's get an MVP, minimum viable product, within 90 days. And let's get it out in the market and see what happens. If it doesn't take off within the next 90 days, we'll pivot again and do another product, okay, whatever it is. That was the clear intent. And believe it or not, our team delivered within 90 days. You can't believe it. By the way, it rarely happens. I have never seen this happening in my...
that was a tight deadline.
90 days. And I said, let's go there. Minimum viable. We had nothing in there, one button. Get me a driver button. and that kind of thing. Very simple. And so we launched it on 29th of June, I remember. And then we got one trip that day. And then a couple of days later, trickled to 2.
Any marketing, or it was just... How did people hear about it?
Well, first of all, word of mouth. We talked to all our friends. Hey, you want to use DriveU? We have this service. That's one thing. Second thing was we started Facebook, and Google started doing that.
But in those early days when it was just one trip, was that basically a friend of yours or something?
Friends coming, like, I'll use it. And then they come back and give you feedback. That was what we wanted to try to do. Think of it as a beta test, right? And then if we never look back, never. And we are doubling every year. Okay, by the way, that's another thing that I want to say is that doubling every year is pretty good. But a lot of VCs told me that some of them told me, we will not invest unless you can show me 10x growth in a year. I said, 10x? Why? Because the only way I can do 10x growth is I give away for free, right? That comes the margins I'm talking about, right? Where you don't make money, you lose money. And that was the mindset of VCs in those days. Lots of money throwing around, but show me you can grow 10x. I said, no, thank you. We can't do that. I'm going to grow. We doubled every year. We are again doubling. Since COVID, again, we doubled again. So to me, doubling every year is a decent growth that will not stress and strain the company in terms of operations, marketing, everything. So that's another lesson, is that kind of comes to what we are happening nowadays is, people grow in a hurry and suddenly they'll start saying their money has dried up. I don't have enough money to survive. What do I do? Then I cut back. It's in the kindergarten, I learned the race between the turtle and the hare, right? The hare took a nap. Turtle kept going. We are the turtle.
Right.
We are okay. Doubling every year is not a bad thing.
And I think the part of the story that we can add here in the startup context is that there's probably about 100 hares and usually only one or two turtles. It's
Yes.
just not as popular. You know, you look around, you see a bunch of other
turtle
hares.
is not sexy.
Yeah.
It's too slow. He's trudging along. But he's making progress, right? And I wanted investors who appreciate that. And we are lucky to have investors who believe in that.
Yeah. I wanted you to tell me a little bit about, so you got to the end of that sort of first year, you had given yourself a year of runway, you got to the end of it, and then what? You went out and started raising money from...
Funny thing is, within 6 weeks after we started the company, Unitas approached us. They had already heard about us. And they came to our office and they said, I even have the slide deck I had, So actually, we launched in July of 2015. By last week of August, I had already met Will in Seattle. He had asked me to come and visit him in Seattle because the local team were impressed with DriveU and they said, hey, we want to do something here. We want to put some money. And then I went over to Seattle. And the funny thing is, over sushi, Will and I are eating. And Will asked me, he says, you know what, Ram? Oh, it's all great, but Ola and Uber will be able to put one more button onto their app saying driver service. So how are we going to answer? How are we going to answer that question? You know what I mean? Because it's very easy for them to do it. From a technology wise, it's easy for them to do it. And Will was, I explained to him, I said, listen, why would they want to do it? Let's just step back a little bit. Why would they want to do it? I mean, do they want to reduce trips for their existing taxi service? They don't want to do that. They are all talking about cars are history. They're not going to have cars. Everybody's going to use cabs in the future. Nobody's going to own a car. Okay? And then why do they want to have a driver service with what we are trying to do? And he says, yeah, I think it's good. You have a good story. I think, that's when, in fact, within less than 2 months after we started the company, I had $500,000 lined up with him. He said, I'm going to put $500,000 into the company. Yeah. I mean, we never even looked for it. We never went out to look for money. And they came to us and it was just perfect. If you talk to Will, he says, I like the determination you had, whether you put money or not, we're just going to keep going. We know this is going to work.
Wow.
And by the way, another very important thing, our first month of operation, we had positive unit economics. Okay. I did not lose money. I mean, you can look at it and say, you're too conservative. But at the same time, what I say is that I'm getting the right customer. I'm not getting customer on discounts. I'm getting customer because they value the service and they are willing to pay the money that we are asking.
Right. And if you don't go that route, then how do you even know if your product or your service is genuinely considered valuable to the customer that you're targeting?
Exactly. So it was a very simple precept, right? When we started, all these mom and pops they used to charge 300 rupees for a 4-hour package of a driver. We said, we're going to break this model. We will charge you 99 rupees per hour. Okay, for a 4-hour, it'll be 400 rupees. But, but you can use the driver for 99 rupees and you can still make, so we're going to break. So a lot of customer would say, oh, maybe they'll use, what our analysis found was, even though if you do by the hour, most customers use 3.5 hours. Okay. And even today, our average ticket size on a B2C is 500 rupees. And by the way, our price hasn't changed. For 4-hour package, we are still 399 rupees.
Wow.
Yeah, after 7 years, with all the inflation, because we are able to give more income for our drivers, they are willing to take the little bit of, hit on their margins. We started off with a 1% gross margin. Now we are at 20%. And they are willing to say, hey, because I know DriveU is going to give me more business.
Right. So between the beginning and I guess around the start of 2020, was it pretty much smooth sailing or did you have any?
No, we always had issues. I mean, in the sense, let's say I raised, we always, initially we had only $1 million to start with. That's not enough to, because we are doing marketing across multiple cities in India. So we had to raise more money.
You're trying to spread the word about
DriveU. We had radio ads, we had, billboards, we had partnerships. So we had to raise more money. So I raised remaining most of the $5.5 million, probably about $4.5 million I raised in the first 4 years. A lot of times it's, a CEO's job is always looking to raise money. Okay. At the end of the day, you have to always go make sure that you have money in the bank to sustain yourself. And a lot of my friends are investors in my company, which is amazing. We just, they love us, and we are very transparent. By the way, another thing is we are transparent with our information about the company, how it's running, to our employees, to our investors. Every investors know what's going on quarter after quarter. They will know what's going on, what's the dynamic going on. So we had even during COVID, when COVID hit, it was everything shut down. We were shut down too. And so that's the first time we were forced to lay off people to just survive, cut salaries. And I was still able to raise money during COVID because a lot of my Unitas and as well as a lot of my angel network in the Valley believed in us. And I was able to raise money in 2 weeks, even when there was no business going on for DriveU at that time.
But, for a lot of companies, the pandemic kind of killed them off, right?
Yeah.
Were you guys close, like having a near-death experience at that point, or was the money that you raised enough to get you through?
It was definitely very close to death. We were maybe 30 to 60 days of cash left when the COVID hit. And, weirdly speaking, I always believed that this company will continue to grow because I had faith in the team, and I know there was a service needed. We had the first 4 years, we had figured out that there is a customers who are looking for this service, and we had so on. So I went back to echoed it with my investors and said, listen, guys, I know we are completely shut down. There is no business right now, but it's going to come back. It's going to come back roaring. COVID is going to end. We don't know how long it takes. And but we will, survive. We have cut our costs. We cut our as much as possible. We're belt tightening.
And as you said, you had to lay some people off.
We laid off 40% of our employees, which is huge.
These are your full timers or also driver partners?
No. DriveU partners, there is no layoff because they are on
partners.
Partners. But for full-time employees, we laid off 40 employees out of 100 employees we had at that time. But one of the things we told them was, you'll be the first one to hire back when things picked up because we're just doing for survival. Guess what? Most of them are back to DriveU now. They come back because we treated them nicely, fairly, and so on. And then DriveU partners, the problem was there's no business. What do we do? So our team just again went out and said, you know what? What we found was during COVID, delivery business took off, right? You had to deliver food, medicine, whatnot. So we started partnering with all the delivery companies, and we were able to keep at least 20 to 30% of our drivers busy to make basic income they could make out of a delivery. So I was happy about that. We couldn't do all of them, but as many as we could do. We were amazed that we were able to get something. We worked with everybody, all the delivery partners, and say, how do we do this? Help you guys. Another where we pivoted there was we were primarily a consumer-focused company. And after COVID hit, we had a business focus. We used to do drivers for businesses when they needed. And after COVID hit, the B2B part of our business picked up quite rapidly. And that really saved us. Actually, for example, used car sales market took off. Like you had all these companies, Spinny, Cars24, Cardeco. All these guys were doing, and they used to do, for example, test drive at your home. Nobody wanted to go to a showroom because of COVID. There you go, voila. We take a DriveU's driver, go there and do the, So we figured out other use cases for driver service during COVID. And pre-COVID, for example, 25% of our trips were for businesses and 75% for consumers. Today, it's probably 40% for business and 60% for consumers right now. So the business is still pretty strong for us. During COVID also, what happened is, unfortunately, a lot of our business partners, many of them went out of business. So there are a lot of receivables we never received money, even though we had billed them. They never paid us.
Oh, no.
Okay. That even was a huge expense for us, because for us, what we do, I have not told you this, is that when a driver does a trip, all the trips he has done by midnight, the next day by lunchtime, he has money in his bank account. We do everyday settlement with our drivers.
How does that compare to the industry norm?
Industry normal is typically 1 week or 10 days, so they don't do every day. It's not easy to do every day, but we do every day because we have built a software stack to automate this whole process, and automatically money goes into their account every day. We reconcile their books by lunchtime. It's next day they have the money in the bank account. The reason we did that is because drivers, at the end of the day, they're blue collar workers. They need cash. They can't wait for a week. And it's even troubling for a cab driver because they have to pay fuel for the cab. They have to, something happens to the car, they have to fix it, and so on. In our case, it's not a problem. Typically they use a two-wheeler, but that's about it. But we want to make sure from day one, we have given our drivers money the next business day, right? So that also helps in terms of retention, driver retention, supply. That's why we don't, our cost of driver acquisition is ridiculously low. It's actually, believe it or not, it's zero for DriveU. It's all 95% is word of mouth.
Wow.
They bring their own friends. And if they bring their friends, we give them incentives for them when they make the trips. It's like, we give them some incentives. And that's how it worked for DriveU. So we have drivers who have been with us in 2015, still on the platform. They love us. So they make decent money. And so coming back to your question on COVID, we made sure that the drivers made money as much as possible because we know that COVID has been very tough for especially the blue collar workers. A lot of them went to their villages and lost their, a lot of it. They lost their cars and bikes and so on. It's terrible stuff. So that is a permanent. And another obviously, we very sharply focused on margins. Our margins actually got better. Another thing that happened during COVID, most of our competitors they all went out by the wayside. So we had no competition at all for all practical purposes because they just couldn't survive. So we were able to grow our trips and our revenue nicely, organically.
So you guys are the market leader now.
We are number one in the country.
And do you think that was probably because they weren't able to adapt the way that you guys were, trying different things, grocery delivery, moving more in the B2B direction, or yes. Was it just that they didn't have the funding, or like
Both. Both. Because funding is necessary. I was able to raise money to survive, right? We were able to raise, so get that going, and so money was there. And the most important aspect was our team is very, very on their feet, figure out a way to continue. By the way, we never, even though when the first COVID hit, for 2 months, we had no driver service. Nobody was using it. Still, we were showing revenue, positive revenue. We never had zero revenue.
Wow.
Yeah, because we started doing grocery delivery. We pivoted within a week, less than a week. Yeah, so that's what happened.
Yeah, and I actually heard there was an interview that you gave during the pandemic, where I'm sure at that time things were still a little bit challenging for DriveU, but you were mapping out sort of the vision of like what you thought you guys would be offering later on down the road. And it's amazing to see how DriveU is actually actualizing a lot of those plans. Like you've sort of become, rather than just the service where you offer drivers to drive people around in their own vehicles, but now you're becoming this one-stop shop for pretty much everything revolving around car ownership, whether it's car washing or repairs or insurance. Probably you could list off all the different.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually from day one, that was our vision. Our vision, actually, my first deck I presented to Unitas has that in there. So we never got to that because for the first 4 years, we were busy trying to get the driver service stabilized. And then the pandemic hit. So we launched car wash service a couple of quarters ago. It's growing nicely. Last quarter, we grew by 7 times the quarter before. And we are growing nicely on that car wash. And we have partnered with other our partners who are doing car maintenance and roadside assistance And we also have partnered for car sales. And anything related to car can be using the DriveU app. Why are we doing that? For today, for example, we have about 2 million downloads of our app, DriveU app. And 500,000 of those people have actually used driver service today of our customers. There are, in the top 10 metros or top 20 metros, there are about 15 million car owners in the country. So we are scratching the surface. We are only in the top, 10 cities and nothing, maybe a little bit more. But there is a huge opportunity for us to go from 500,000 car owners to maybe 5 million. Now, another thing to keep in mind is driver service it is not, you don't need, you can drive without a driver. You can drive your own. But car wash is pretty much done more often. Driver service, on an average, people use us in between 3 to 4 times a month. They use us, whereas car wash could be 25 times a month. So the frequency is high, but the ticket sizes are lower. That's one. Second thing. Car maintenance, for example, you don't get your car maintained once every 6 months, oil change maybe once every 6 to 9 months. So the frequency is low, but the ticket sizes are high, right? And car insurance motor insurance is, for example, is once a year. So I can offer the motor insurance and I get, we get a cut. So the idea here is that we have customer base who trust DriveU, who trust the DriveU brand. How can we improve the wallet share for us on all aspects of car owner? And that's why we have become a car ownership app right now. Our driver service has been profitable for the last 2 quarters. So what we are doing is we are actually using the profits from driver service to invest in the car wash service. We are not raising money outside. We are just using internal money to actually invest ourselves into what better things for our investors, because they get more bang for the buck.
Of course, yeah. They don't need to invest any more money in
or dilute somebody else from outside. They dilute themselves. I don't want to do that. So if we can do it, we might, I'm not against raising money, but at the right valuation, we might be able to raise money if we want to, and then we'll decide what to do.
Well, I just think it's incredible that I think probably even during the pandemic or slightly after the pandemic, everything was all about fundraising. Everything's about unicorns. Everybody's talking about these companies, which are sort of inherently unsustainable, right? And they're not really scaling. They're just growing. They're like burning through tons of money to get bigger and bigger. But then what's sort of the long-term game plan for these companies, right? I think nobody really knew, but we were just looking at these increasing valuations and comparing India to the United States or India to China. And everybody got sort of brainwashed for a little bit.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you guys were just, quietly building. Yeah. And I wanted to know, do you have any thoughts on, because now we're seeing a shift, right? Now suddenly the public is like, oh, no. We want you to be profitable. That's like loss making is a dirty word at this point, right? Yeah. So I wanted to know, do you have any thoughts on being the turtle?
Well, as a turtle, I looked around. I don't know any living, breathing unicorn in the world. So it was a mythical word, unicorn, right? We always made jokes about this. There is no such thing called a unicorn. And if your success metrics is based on what your valuation is, how much money you have raised, what you have forgotten is what is the true value of your company? What service are you offering your customers? And how can you offer this service in the most optimal way and make these customers come back to you over and over and over? We have customers who use every day and who are on our platform for the last 5-6 years. And what we took pride in that, as opposed to saying, oh, I'm going to raise money, this much money at this valuation. We never thought it made any sense. It doesn't make any sense to us. And again, coming from a turtle's brain, it may be different than a hare's brain, but a turtle's brain is definitely thinking that way. So the thing that I always thought was, what's the end goal here, right? I have seen many crazy upswing and crashes in my life, right? I told you I started my first company in 95. At that time, Netscape went public. That's the beginning of the web started in the US. And then the .coms, anything .com of everything, right? Everything was going pet.com, this .com, that .com. And as long as you have a .com, people put money in a company, and everything crashed in 2000. Just about every company lost their money, right? I saw that happening in 2000. To be honest with you, Silicon Valley was a ghost town in 2000. When you drive, it felt like you wanted to cry because that's what happened. I was like watching about all these things going on. Then slowly picked up. Of course, in the embers of all these things, of course, Google came on strong, Amazon came on strong, Facebook started again. And I know there are a lot of good things about that, but then 2008 crash happened again. In 2008, we had this crazy mortgage-backed security crash happen. Again, companies started losing money. So I knew the next one was coming. It just wasn't, because I have, once bitten, twice shy, right? So I've been bitten twice. I've seen it. So I had more shy. Then I thought, what, this party is gonna end. One day this party is going to end. So I looked at all these unicorns and we just chuckled. I said, okay, let's just focus on our business, guys. Make our customers super happy and they'll come back to us over and over. And that's what we did. Okay. So the crash finally is happening now, even COVID didn't stop. It just kept growing, and I was like, wow, COVID is also making these companies go crazy. Look at Peloton. Look at companies. It's just sad to see these companies, they have a good product, don't get me wrong. But the problem is they just don't have the right unit economics to make money and sustainable. And what will happen is the big companies will buy them on 10 cents on a dollar. And then maybe the investors have made half whole. If they put $100 million, they somehow get their $50 million back or whatever. And the entrepreneurs lose everything. Okay, these are young entrepreneurs. I hope they don't lose their enthusiasm for startup. Maybe they should think about a way to do it slightly differently than the last time around. I feel sad to see companies get shut down every day. I hear stories of layoffs. Every employee you lay off, it's the vision they had. They had all the things they were thinking about what they are doing. It's sad to see this going. Unfortunately, the whole world economy is, at least the capitalist system, is going up and down and up and down. It's going to happen again, right? After this winter of what has happened with the investment winter, it will start picking up again in the next 2, 3, 4 years, and then
everybody will
forget the past. They keep forgetting the past. The party starts all over again, and I hope some of them will learn, like I did, and I never thought this way. I was like, and I just, when people came and told me, you should be growing like crazy, I'll say, okay, that's okay. I would rather grow carefully, making money on it, and making a mark and making something that we can be proud of.
That was Rahm Shastry, executive chairman and co-founder of DriveU. And when he's not busy building his startup, Rahm actually spends a lot of time with dogs.
I want to say, okay, is this consumer product, when it goes out, will I be a customer? Will I eat the same dog food that we make? That's pretty much what I'm like.
And just for anyone who is confused there, Rahm is a dog lover. So that comment about eating the dog, if people don't know that, they might be like, what? When I visited DriveU's office in September of 2022, there were 4 dogs there to greet me, all of which were adopted. And Rahm is a big believer in the adopt, don't shop philosophy and has been known to give employees a week off from work and a keg of beer if they adopt a stray dog. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the show this week, and I'll catch you in the next one.